Watkwanawanadu, Sewagwego, Kahstoserakwathe Niyangyats. We are here today. It's Kahstoserakwathe Pulletmore with the Anti-Dandelion. And we're doing a very special tribute today to our Lakota Auntie Germaine Tremmel. And I'm here with our dear friend Rebecca Kemble, who is from Wisconsin, who has been involved in local government. She's an activist, a food sovereigntyist. And and we went to Standing Rock together and met Auntie Germaine together. So she's someone who is just dear to us, and sat with her in her final days. And that was 5 years ago, unbelievably. So could you introduce yourself and a little reflection on Germaine?
Sure. My name's Rebecca Kemble. I live in the DeJope area of Ho-Chunk Territory, otherwise known as Madison, Wisconsin. And we met Auntie Germaine at the healing gathering on Phyllis Young's place on Porcupine Creek 1 year after the momentous encampments at Standing Rock on the Cannonball River to try to stop the Dakota Access Pipeline from crossing just above the reservation. So we had gone there to document how people's journeys were going 1 year on. We hadn't met Germaine, although, Paulette, you had met Germaine numerous times. In 2016, but you didn't realize it.
She kept showing up as different characters in my footage. It was crazy. We'll talk more about that later, but yeah.
Yeah, we remembered that later. So yeah, that was just, for me, that was the highlight of the trip, was meeting her and getting connected to her and having an exchange of like life force. I feel like she really transmitted something to us when we were talking to her, and you can see it in the interview that Paulette videotaped.
Yeah, and that we did together, and it was really that focus on healing that we were there in 2017. Seeking that healing. That's why people regathered, and there was an enormous amount of grief. And what she gave us really affects me every day. And just remembering, and this is for her. I've got all my adornments, my Maori jade earrings, all because her theory was that women need to be adorned. And she was a bone jewelry maker, and, really looking at women as the strength of our communities, and women as the carriers of who is going to bring the healing. I'm just grateful for that, honestly, every day. Can you describe a little bit more, Rebecca, about who she was throughout her life? She had many incarnations. And like I said, even in our films, she showed up as a veteran on one. I put this all together after I was starting to edit our Eagle and the Condor film that Rebecca and I made based on ceremony. Like, what is it about ceremony that is affecting these water protection actions? And we learned those lessons also together in the Pinocchio Hills of Wisconsin, when the Ojibwe used ceremony and education and food sovereignty to kick out a massive mine up there. And it was successful. And I really felt like those actions in Wisconsin really set me up to understand what lens to look at the Standing Rock actions. So I'm very grateful to what happened in Wisconsin before that, so that we could look, because there was so much violence there, but we were able to bring this lens of ceremony and teachings first, and then, learn from there.
We didn't spend that much actual time with Germaine, but the time we spent with Germaine was very potent. So all we actually know about Germaine is from her stories and from the stories that her beloveds told about her at her wake.
Mm.
That's what we know about her. But she's descended from Sitting Bull, and is from Standing Rock, and became was in the military, but also became a medicine person, and started women's drumming groups. And that she spent a lot of time going around in the 80s. I think mostly it was in the 80s, forming and supporting women to do singing and ceremony. And at that same time, she was also making jewelry. Mm-hmm. She went to law school, became a lawyer, and decided that she would use her education not within the U.S. legal system, but in the international realm to advocate for getting the Black Hills back for her people. So she did a lot of work at the United Nations, at the World Court. She did a lot of advocating, legal research, and just focused on getting that land back for her people, for the Okchety-Sakowin. When we met her, she was experiencing some health difficulties that she thought may have been from contaminants, air and water contaminants that the militarized forces used against the people at Standing Rock in 2016, with all the spraying they did, and they were dropping things from airplanes. And so she was not well, and she was just trying to get her affairs in order. And that's how we met her.
Yeah. And she was robust looking. Like when we met her, she had such strength. And then in 2019, when we went to South Dakota, we drove down from Bismarck to South Dakota. We were at a film festival where The Eagle and the Condor was being featured. She was in a vet hospital, a veterans hospital that was next to Bear Butte, which was absolutely right. It was absolutely the right location. And Bear Butte being such a sacred part of Lakota, Dakota, Nakota teachings and background. And so, when we met her later, so we interviewed her at Standing Rock, which is what you're going to see, just an excerpt of that interview. And then we went and sat with her as she was getting on her journey. And she looked so different, but she still had that incredible spirit when we sat down with her. And she told us just profound stories, delightful stories. She told stories of how she honored the elders in her community, when she would come home from being in the Army and she'd go out and was it a groundhog? She was going to go out and harvest prairie dogs, right? Do you remember this one?
Paws.
Yeah, the paw.
To make the scratchers.
Yeah. So, and she'd be walking by the elders' houses and they'd be like, "Hey, get me a prairie dog, get me a prairie dog." And that was the most amazing thing, that it was the paws of the prairie dog, so you could scratch your back with those. I mean, so it was those silly and amazing stories, but that told us a lot about her relationships to her elders, right? And how to be, when they call to you, and her skill, her skill in harvesting, and just what's important. These little moments, as well as huge moments that are also so important.
The raccoons washing dishes.
Raccoon.
But that VA hospital, it wasn't just any VA hospital. It was Fort Meade, the actual place where Custer's army, gathered before attacking in all the Indian wars of 2 centuries ago now. And so Germaine, she had been living in Vancouver at the time, and getting medical care in Vancouver, but she wanted to be within sight of Bear Butte when she passed. And she said, being at that VA hospital, I'm going to count coup on Custer with my death, because I'm going to make them give me a free wake and supply all the coffee and food for it. And she did.
She did.
I went to that wake, and she did.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was beautiful. Yeah.
And the feeling, that we had when we sat with her for a number of days, she would kind of puff herself up. She was very frail. She had lost a lot of weight. And when we first saw her, she was kind of quieter. And then she'd start telling stories and then just kind of puff herself up with all this energy of sharing these important things that she was telling us. And then as new aunties, people were coming from all different directions to visit, and she'd kind of like go back down and then kind of puff herself up again, in sharing what we really needed to hear, honestly. And the one thing that stands out in my mind is that she told us that something was coming November 2019. And she said, it's going to turn the world upside down. And you asked her, when is that going to happen? Is it like 5 years? Is it 10 years? And she said, no, it's here already. And, we then discovered a couple months later that this massive illness, global pandemic, was already taking hold when she told us that. And she also told us a lot. And she said this also in the interview, and I didn't remember this on camera. She said a lot of the elders were going over to the other side because they would be more effective over on the other side. And she said, but it's absolutely going to change the world, and was really alerting us that we needed to get ourselves in order.
Yeah. And her main message of that interview was, we're all related, and that we have to take great care in all our relationships to each other and to everything. And I think she would say, and the other part was, the body's just temporary. We're just here for a time. Others will come after us. But what's most important is our spiritual condition. So our experience with her in the hospital, I saw it as spirit just coming through her.
Yeah.
And holding her there to release and share that information she was sharing with us. And then when that flow was complete, she would rest again.
And really taught us a lot about even traveling between dimensions.
Yeah.
She told us the story. It was one after another. She had so many, but she told us the story about going to Hawaii, meeting these two brothers that were Hawaiian. They brought her home. They welcomed her as family. They taught her to create this bone jewelry. And they taught her, they just fed her and put the love on her. And she spent all this time. Then she went away and started making this bone jewelry in order to sustain herself when she wouldn't have to take money from organizations and be compromised in that way. That's what I understood was, why she was using that, the way that she was using that bone jewelry, that the proceeds from the bone jewelry. And then a number of years later, she went back to Hawaii and went back to that spot to find them. They had a shop where they had taught her to create bone jewelry. It wasn't there. Some of the locals, she asked, they said that was never a thing. It was never here, and it felt like she was very comfortable in understanding that was some kind of other dimension that she was traveling in. And I think what that brought to me is just the normalizing of that type of spiritual engagement. And really an invitation to welcome that and not hold that at bay.
Story that meant a lot to me when we were there was she wanted certain kind of foods when she was in the hospital. So we would go out and we didn't get the ribs. We got the ribs for the wake, but we got this Chinese food. And while we were waiting for it, we went next door to the sex shop and bought socks.
You bought socks.
And we got her a pair, and we each got a pair, and she loved those socks so much. She wanted to be buried in those socks.
How has it pushed and pulled on you in these interim years? And can you believe it's 5 years?
I mean, every day she's in my prayers. I consider her an ancestor, even though we're not blood related. I consider her a spiritual mentor and an ancestor. Her spiritual teachings about being a hollow bone and respecting all life. It's just part of who I am now.
Yeah.
And understanding that things aren't always as they seem, that there are bigger stories going on than just the immediacy of what's happening right now.
It meant a lot too, because you suffered an arrest in the year before.
Yeah.
And there was a pretty massive brutality to it. And I think it affected all of us. Just knowing that you had been arrested, acting as a monitor as well. There was so much injustice around that. And your camera was taken. That was terrifying. It was really scary how they were arresting people, strip searching them. It was such tactics that they were just trying out there. Brutality against water protectors and militarization. And when we sat with her, and I'm glad, like in this section that we're going to show in a minute, you ask her, you bring out this fierceness and you bring your skills to the table, and then you get brutalized. One of her answers to you was, that's not yours. Like, you were not alone. That's not yours. That's theirs.
She was talking about ceremony and relationship to life and to creation, and then how those who don't respect it, how do we engage with those people? And she was basically saying, they don't know who they are. You have to pity them. You know who you are. We know who we are. And so they can brutalize us all they want, but we know that, number one, there's more coming behind us. We're not alone. And number two, we're doing what we do out of love and out of care, and that is stronger than anything. And so, yes, we have these ceremonies for the wiping of the tears, ceremonies to help us heal from that. But your power is knowing who you are and acting out of love, and knowing that we're together in that. During that arrest, I realized I blacked out. There was a time that from the time they first put their hands on me to, sometime later when they were pushing me far away, something happened to me. I don't know what. I don't know if anything, even physical happened to me or what, or if it was just like a spiritual blackout, or I don't know what happened.
Yeah.
But when I came to, I just went into a state of prayer, standing there by the pipeline, waiting for them to finish all the other arrests that day. And something opened up inside me where I had access to the memories of that land that I was standing on. And I wasn't terrified. I was just open and observant. That's what I would say I was. And as other people were, I watched other people, young women being pulled by their hair, for example, and just awful things happen by law enforcement. But like I said, I had put myself in a state of prayer, and I was just, trying to channel that love for the people. So yeah, and she recognized that, and she said that's why you're okay, right? And I'm like, yeah, I'm okay. I'm okay. And we'll collectively be okay, because we just need to connect with each other on that level of just deep compassion and care.
Yeah.
Even in the face of especially in the face of such brutality.
That phrase, I think we've even said it to each other since then, of let it go, don't pick that up no more.
Yeah.
That's not yours.
That's
theirs. That's theirs. And that's so powerful.
Acknowledging that we we have access to other levels of reality that are healing.
Right. So one of the other things that meant a lot to me is really acknowledging that Standing Rock was this moment of prophecy where the young people from Standing Rock ran to Washington to bring awareness to this pipeline. And she said, now the fire's been lit, the seventh fire. And now our job is to tell it. And it was in that time that I went back to Six Nations and learned my language. I went into immersion and then started the Anti-Standing Lion, and all of that rolled out after Standing Rock. And as a result of sitting there with her as she shared this wisdom. So for that, I'm eternally grateful. And I'm grateful that you were there. I remember when we hiked up onto Bear Butte, and there were the Tatanka up there, the buffalo up there that meant so much to us at Standing Rock as well. They kept showing up in really important ways. And that was one of the incarnations in the footage when I went back, when I was editing that documentary and looked, there were 3 or 4 different times when Germaine showed up. And it was when we were sitting there with her that she was telling the story of harvesting the buffalo, of butchering the buffalo. And it's the exact story I had been telling to people in public spaces, but we were all like wrapped up, right? And I said, there was this elder there who knew how to do everything. She knew how to sharpen the knives. And then she's, handing it to us. And then she said, this particular organ is the Bible. And I'm like, oh, is it because it holds truth? And she goes, no, because it looks like a Bible.
It's like a book.
It looks like a book.
Pages.
It's got pages. Like, don't take yourself so seriously.
One thing she said about the camp, Okchetisakowin, she said that time was sacred for the reason that we made it sacred. The coming together itself was sacred, and on that land was sacred, and not because of anything inherent in any single person or or the land itself. It was the collective intention that we came together with.
Yeah.
Sacralized that whole time, that whole experience, and that level of unity that really has been unprecedented in our times. Global unity, people around the globe, and that's how we do it.
That's how we
do
connection.
it. Through connection and intention and shared intention.
Yeah, and making family with each other.
Yes.
And that's one thing that really came to me afterwards at one of our events. It was like what we did, and I keep getting that as a message as well. The biggest important, people could say Standing Rock was not a success because that pipeline did go through, but those legal battles are still going. And the greatest thing is that we're aware of how these things work. We're aware of those tactics, but most of all, we made family with each other. Yeah. And the people, especially from the documentary, The Eagle and the Condor, that came out in 2018, that I think I'll probably make that available for at least a little while. It'll be on our page, our Vimeo page. We made family with each other. And I'm teaching this Indigenous environmental justice class. And I almost keep trying to force myself into that legal realm. Mm-hmm. And what keeps happening is I'm pulled back into the relational realm. And I came up with this understanding of how and why I'm teaching the way that I am is that justice is a result of making family with each other. That's where we have to restart ourselves. Yeah. We have to go back and take each other very seriously and take care of each other. Like that is where justice begins. And you can work, she was able to do all of that, like work at the level of the UN, work in local politics. She was a city planner in Minnesota. Like she had so many incarnations. Yeah. and work within her nation in an extreme blizzard that she was involved in her own nation, where she was calling on all her resources to get resources to Standing Rock. And that's what she brought me to, is that justice is, I'm looking at what I wrote down, justice is a result of making family with each other. And I don't think people, number one, understand what that means. I think my students are so welcome to that as an idea. And then when it gets to like, what's your responsibility to your community? They're like, I don't know. It's because we're so used to focusing on rights rather than responsibilities, right?
And relationships.
Yeah. Within a legal system.
Yeah.
So I'm grateful.
But even, in legal systems, you can't get anything done without relationships. And we just went through that here in Madison, where this, our police accountability mechanism that we fought so hard to create, the mayor just decided to cut it from the budget. And we had to fight hard to get it back. But my point is, we got to a place in the city where no one was paying attention to it anymore, such that the mayor felt like she could do that.
Yeah.
Because she didn't have the relationships, but we had to re-energize all of those relationships with all of those people to come to the meeting on Tuesday night and to advocate beforehand and to say, no, we need this. Mm-hmm. And because it was built through relationship, it wasn't that hard to, reactivate folks. Right. And then here's the people. So justice isn't some abstract concept. Right. That, a philosophical concept that you can argue about. It's the life of the people, and it emerges from the life of the people, and it has to be sustained through the life and commitment of the people and our relationships together.
Yeah. And there's a lot about academia too. If I'm teaching where there is that removal and that being objective, which nobody ever is, where I will not operate in that way. And some of our greatest scholars are the people that are writing about picking berries and making jam. How to do that. How do you make raspberry tea for the young mothers that need that nourishment? Those are the things that stand out for me, those practical, embodied, plus spiritual, plus there's one, I think it's Leanne Simpson, who says, the only thing that doesn't bring you knowledge is thinking. We have to be out on the land with each other, as we were at Standing Rock, learning how to butcher with those bison, learning that we can make whole communities, 10,000 people can come together, remain safe, take care of each other. And
sanitation systems.
Oh my God.
Systems,
the most
cold
amazing
weather systems.
Yeah. And all of it was free donations. I got there in September. It was way colder than I thought it was. Somebody walks up to me with a down coat, right? And that worked. That let us all know that this is possible. And we've done it before. And
we're going to have to do it again.
We're going to have to do it again.
A whole lot more.
That's
but
right.
There's joy in that. There's joy in that.
There is joy.
Yeah. And there's life in that.
And that meaning too of the opposite of fear is love.
And connection. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, love. Yawa.
All right. Love you.
Love you.
I'd like to say a prayer, and I'll sing a woman's song, woman gathering song. And that's what our grandmas would sing that when they wanted berries, or they wanted to go out and be out in berries by the water. They would sing this song. How does that bear song go? Way-ah-ya-ho, way-ah-ya-ho, way-oh-hey, way-ah-ya-ho, way-ah-ya-ho, Yahweh, Yahweh, oh hey. Yahweh, oh hey. Yahweh, Yahweh, oh hey. Way ya ya ho, way ya ho, ya, way yo hey, Yahweh yo hey, Yahweh Yahweh yo hey, Yahweh yo hey, Yahweh Yahweh yo hey. Oh, Mitako Yasi, thank you. As a Star people, a lot of people know us as what is called a Sioux, but we call ourselves Lakota, Dakota, or Nakota. That's our dialect, okay, of the language we speak. And it also defines our territory, the dialect here. And so with that, a lot of people say we're Buffalo people, we're Tatanka people, which that's true, we are. We evolved to that. But originally, from our origins, we are known as the Wichachbi people, the people from the stars. See, Wichachbi is star. Wichachbi is the hope of all creation. That's what that represents, Wichachbi. And so with that, that's where we came from. We came from her. So our origins is that these knowledge is given to certain families. The knowledge that was given to my family was that we are a descendant of a Pleiadian sister, and we're related. And we keep the kinship laws of governance within our people, within our family, but also within our individual self, because we are a collective, but we are also individuals, which is highly protected by the collective, you see, as the star clusters are. So we emulate the philosophy of what is above is below. What is below is above, you see. So what occurs to us here affects the ones up above. You see, that's our philosophy, that's our teaching. So we hold that teaching very sacred. And we have symbologies that reflect that. And only certain ones can interpret those symbologies of the star people. See? And it's very, very important that our people now know, because now is the time of the prophecies of the 7th generation. So when we were told that this comes out now, that the stories, the 7th fire will be lit, the fire of knowledge, of knowing who you are, of knowing where you come from, of knowing what you speak, how you conduct yourself, and knowing your area, knowing your kinship, those laws, that way to conduct yourself. That's all from that origin, see? And so we have to be related to keep those laws in its true form. And so one of those things is that we are good to Mother Earth. She is our mother. She provides our food. She provides the goodness she gives to us. We are, as women, we are 70-some% of water. Mm-hmm. We are related to the water because we are life givers. You see? The men, the same way, all two-legged. We are water carriers in our bodies. So therefore, we are related to this water as it is sacred, like we are. You see? We are related to this wind that we feel today. It's a blessing. It's blessing us. We're related to this sky, the clouds, because it speaks to us. Because if we need the heat, it separates. If we need the coolness, it comes. If we need the rain, it comes. You see? But this is why we are related to all things. Mitakoye oyasi. We are all related. because we have to take care of these things. We have to make sure that when we take care of these things, we know what we're doing, see? So these knowledge comes down, is passed down from family to family. And each one, where one begins and one ends, another one begins and another one ends, see? And that's how it evolves. It keeps going. Nothing ends totally, you see, especially with star knowledge. So from that, we became star people. And then from there, when we came to two-legged, we became the buffalo people, because the buffalo provided everything for us, see? And so it sustained us. It helped us to live, to thrive and live, you see? And then we became that, many you probably hear of the Wichasha Nawiya, which means the man and the woman. Because then knowledge is brought forth of how to be in a setting that is more open instead of privately over here now, see? So there's a way of conducting yourself from the star people of how to be in a family, in a private setting and in a public setting, in a spiritual way and in a ikja or common way, see? The origins. So that's where all these laws come from. Mother Nature, above, the sky people, the relatives, the ancestors. This land, we are related to what we call the giants. The giants are our relatives. We are descendants, but because of the environment that changed, we became smaller. See, the pipestone that we have in Minnesota is the blood of our ancestors, because they are the giants. And they died for us to protect us, see? So we could continue to be living on top of the earth. And so those are the stories, and those are stories that are kept by certain families also. And so now we come to this prophecy time, prophetic time now, where now those families, we lit the seventh fire now. That is the door opener for the knowledge to be released. And so what has happened now is that families are researching and looking now. Well, now I know why Grandma said this. Now I know why Grandpa said this. Now I know why aunties and uncles said it a certain way. Because that's knowledge. That's a way, the way it's said and done is a way of conduct. To be respectful of all things that you're related to. You don't just come and walk in. You come in gently, you greet. You greet the day. You greet the night. You be good and say those things. You greet that water that sustains you. You greet that food that sustains you. So that way it continues to come and continues to sustain you. And that's what we believe. So we are always talking about being a good relative. And that's what that means to all things, you know.
And how is that different from a culture that does not have this ceremony? What are the impacts of a culture that does not acknowledge in this way? And how do those cultures intersect with this wisdom?
Well, first of all, I would say that the cultures that don't do that, they are very disrespectful. They are I guess the good way to say it is they end their own selves. Because they don't know how to sustain it. They don't know, give credit to this little plant here that may be a water holder. They'll come and just cut it down, you see, and not respecting it. Many medicines are out here today looking at it. They don't know that. They don't want to know that. These medicines sustain this earth. It rejuvenates the soil. It cleans that water out there when it's dirty, when something comes into it. These things help. They help us. But when a culture or a group come in and destroy it, they hurt not only themselves, but there's a ripple effect to all of us. You see, we can live hundreds and hundreds of miles, but because we are related to this land and this energy, it affects us. So we get sick. along with the land. We react just like the land, the wind, the water, all the elements do too. And we don't know where it comes from. You see? Now, look at that. But that's what, when a society does that, our culture does that, it's very devastating because it impacts us one way or another, where we have to pull back and we have to protect ourselves. We have to say, oh, this got to stop. We can't be over there. We got to come over here and we got to rejuvenate or renew, or we got to do something to save it. And that's our obligation as what we call the English way as stewards. But in our way, we say we're as relatives, this is our obligation. So we must do that. Otherwise, we are violating the Creator's laws that will gift it to us if we don't do this. And so the impact is very, very devastating, and we hurt our own selves if we don't take care of these things. Don't identify the plants. Make sure you know what plants rejuvenate the soil, how to treat it, how to talk to it, how to walk on this earth gently. Don't leave your heavy footprint. This body is just a vessel. You see, it's temporary, and it goes back to Mother Earth. Whatever way that individual chooses, it'll go back to her. Either the air, the water, the earth will take it, or fire. You see, either way. These are things that are elements that we have to always consider, that are very sacred to us, and we have to uphold them. That's our obligation as of this land. This is who we are. We don't go out and proclaim that. It's just automatic in our families. So we do these things, but it does affect us. It hurts us. And so we have to heal with these healing ceremonies, the wiping of the tears. We have to have compassion for this earth. We have to have compassion for the wind, compassion for the up above us as below us with the water. And we have to share that. So we have to know those things, where and when and how to do those things. And that's what is in our families. And many families know these things, but they've kept it hidden because of the destruction that's been coming. But now the prophecy says the fire's been lit. Now you have to tell it to help everybody, not only ourselves, all peoples. You see, that's what it's about.
So last year at this time, there was a great gathering just north of here.
Yes.
On the Cannonball River.
Yes.
Do you see that as the beginning of that opening, that telling?
Yes.
Of everyone?
It's when the prophecy started being told, our elders, our medicine people were leaving us, and they told us of that time that they would be leaving us, but that they were gifting us with something. We didn't know at the time what that was, really. You have knowledge. You may have to decide if that knowledge is going to be practiced openly on top of Mother Earth or hidden in Mother Earth. That decision is yours. So we're like, yeah, I was young when I first started hearing this. Choose wisely, my grandmother said. Remember, you're doing this for many behind you. Choose wisely. Look at all things. Walk around on your land and your areas. Check the people. Not just your own, all people's. Where's their mind? Where's their heart? When you find that, you'll know what decision you have to make. Because you're not doing it for yourself. You're doing it for everyone. You're doing it for this relative, Mother Earth. You're doing it for the water, Miniwichoni, so the people may live. And that's what we do. So that event, prophecy was coming and coming. And we knew it. And then when this happened of the black snake, we couldn't believe it. We were shocked. We were like, and it was our youth. Our youth brought it to us, to the elders, the grandma, my granddaughter said, Grandma, what are we going to do? We can't let this happen. We're going to run. Okay. Okay. Where are you going to run to? What are you going to do? We're going to tell that president. Okay. We're going to go with prayer. So we sent them off with prayer. Our people, the one designated, they all went that way. And that we knew then that this was the prophecy coming true. We were witnessing it. But it was our youth now to stand up. And they did. They stood up and they took the message. They were the messengers. And they said that it will be said by the youth, not by us or anyone else, but our young people. It's going to be their voice that's going to be heard. And so sure enough, when this happened, the fire, it was told the fire will be lit now. So the knowledge that we hold will now come forward for them so they can pass that on. So we were told to teach, to tell it now. Document. Listen now. They're telling us something. So that's what we did. So when the fire was lit, the seventh fire, and the camp formulated, people were coming from all four directions, far and near. And that was the part that we were one. Because in the prophecies, we will become one. And we did. In prayer, we had that common, one thing in common. Was not only the water, but that prayer brought us together. To pray for the water. To pray, to stand up for something that was very powerful. That wasn't just us. And it became what it did. And that's where the Descendant, the Sacred Stone Camp and Rosebud Camp, Sichohu, their camps, Minikoju, which was Cheyenne River, Eagle Butte, all these camps, people came. Many nations came. They heard the call, and it was time. They went on their spirit to come. Many left their homes. Many left a good life to come. And we're thankful for that. But that prophecy came to life. It wasn't words anymore. It was living it, actually witnessing it, actually being part of it. And that was the most powerful thing, to sit there and see the prophecy before us with our youth. That was very beautiful. It's not ours. We can't claim it now. It belongs to everybody. Just like being a relative to this earth, it just doesn't belong to us. It belongs to all peoples. See, everyone. They value this Mother Earth. They value the water. If we don't have water, we can't sustain ourselves. And that's why I tell people, how many people go home? You go back to your countries or to your lands, your original territories. What plant holds water? What plant holds oil? What plant is a cleaner? And what kind of cleaner is it? Is it a water cleaner? Is it a soil cleaner? What does it clean? The air? Know these things. Because now our grandmother sages are coming back now. And that's another prophecy. The ancient one will bring her knowledge forth, her medicines. And so the sages, these are ancient ones to us. See, and they're here now. We haven't found these sages in years. Now they're available. See, so we're talking to them. This is our relative. We're making a relative to them and telling them, thank you. Thank you for coming. We need you. Now we need to know the knowledge to sustain this plant. Are you a cleaner to the soil? Are you Mother Earth's little sister? Are you our relative from the water's relative? How are you related? We got to know these things, you see, and that's been passed down, see. So we got to go find the people that know that, the families that know that now, and gift them. It's time. It's time for that knowledge to come forth. So it's a very powerful time.
Yeah.
When Cannonball happened, when Descendant was lit, the seventh fire was lit, and all our relatives came together. That made it sacred. It was all made sacred. That land, the reason they were all there, the purpose, all was sacred because it comes from all these elements. So it's sacred, see? So you've got to learn to conduct yourself in such a way, see, of nature, natural law. She's the one that's going to control us.
So speaking of that word, control and power, there's a brutal response to that coming together, to that coming to the surface of this knowledge and the peoples. And I was caught up in that. I took an arrest, and when I spent the night in the Mandan jail, there were 4 or 5 other women, Native women in the jail already. And I like tapped into 500 years of, my God, they have survived. They've survived. They're 500 years, and they're still creating ways to destroy families. They're not taking the kids away, now they're taking the moms away.
Yes.
Right? It's another kind of removal.
Yes.
So what wisdom or teaching do you have for people in these times when you're told to bring out your knowledge and yet the response is so brutal?
It's going to be a while because it's new. And it's real. It's the truth. So when you walk in truth, you get brutalized. Because you walk in truth. But your protection is what you believe and know in your heart, in your spirit. You felt it. You tapped into that. That's your protection. Of knowing your history. Of knowing where you come from. How you, in your blood, in your hair, which is our DNA of memory, we wear it. You can't change that. That's okay. Because they can brutalize us. They can kill us. Because we're going to still come. We're still coming. We're going to still be here. Because there's more coming behind you. You weren't alone, were you?
No.
See? That's the thing. Because you made relatives of one cause, of one mind, of one heart. You made a relative. So you weren't alone. Your cause may have been over there, but it came with you over here. And it united. And it got powerful. That's what they're afraid of.
Yeah.
Is power of uniting that energy, that spirit of standing as one. Not being like them, but being different. You see, standing here, believing in prayer, and not becoming, as they label us, vicious savages.
Eco-terrorist.
Eco-terrorists, or terrorists, or environmental terrorists. Yeah, they're not that. We're so loving and peaceful. We think of them. We pray for them. Because the effects on that side is far greater than what we suffered. Because we're used to this now. We're adaptable now. We can adapt easily. So we know how to recover ourselves. See, you recovered yourself because you looked in it deeper. You recovered your spirit. You see? You stood in your spirit, not in the human, but in your spirit. And you felt the 500 years of oppression and attacks that we went through, all of us. In that one moment, and when that's 1 second, you already changed it. Just that powerful. You think about that. The catalytic effect that happened then. It's not visible with the human eye, but it's felt. Because we feel. That's the key to this whole movement. We're feeling it. We know it exists. We know the truth.
And we're not afraid.
And we're not afraid. Their power is way different, but we have a different kind of power. You know, we have a different kind of power. We have what we call the elements helping us to become united with it. That's the autonomy of your will within your heart. It's not up here anymore. It's here now. We're feeling. And we're saying how we feel. And we're expressing it now. That's why they don't know how to deal with us. That's why they have to be brutal. But the more brutal they are to us, they're brutal to their own selves. See? They didn't hurt you. You didn't let them.
No.
See? Because you knew who you were. That's all it took. They don't know who they really are because they're afraid of it. Afraid of the truth. You see? They don't want to look at that truth. So they want to suppress it. But it's not working. Because it's coming out bits and pieces. And the bits and pieces coming out it's getting worse. The more you try to hide that, it's going to become a big, huge light. And we're going to stand in that light, that beautiful light. And this will come back. This is going to rejuvenate itself, this water, this earth. All things that are created is going to clean itself. Because that's the way it's told to us. We are only temporary caretakers of this. We are not owners of it. Don't possess it. But we're caretakers because it's temporary. We pass through this. What matters is our spirit, not our physical being. Our physical being's going back, we know that, and that's okay. But it's our spirit that we're concerned with, see? So anything traumatic, we have to take care of that. See, the physical part, that ceremony has to come now. That letting go of that sadness, letting go of what happened now. Let it go. Don't pick it up no more. That's them.
Yeah.
Give it back to them. That's not yours. This is the time now to move on to a higher evolvement. See, higher evolvement. Pity them. Pity them. That's all you can do. Have compassion. Because one day you're going to cross paths with them. It's going to be, how did you do this? Their generations may come back and ask you, weren't you the one that so and so and so? They're going to remember. And you're going to tell the good story. The goodness you're going to share with them. Not the brutality. Because it's already forgiven through ceremony. See? Through love, through compassion, through humility, through respect, peace. See?